How are you viewing 2023 here after what was just a brutal year in stocks and bonds?
Sure. Well, I mean, it was a remarkable year. We'll give you that, right? And especially if you had any of the former FANG stocks, they did not do well. Or if you were into technology, especially semiconductors, these are areas that just have gotten hit. And that's for many reasons, but mostly, at least here in the US, it's because of the Fed's quick raise.
Yeah.
So I guess COVID makes you do things quickly. Your last segment talked about China opening quickly. Well, we tried to get a handle on inflation, and any kind of growth-oriented stocks just got killed. But should you care? Should you care? If you need the money this year, and you were forced to sell, you probably do care. But you really shouldn't if you're a long-term investor, because we know growth will come back at some point, and computers really aren't a fad, and semiconductors are going to be something that companies turn to in the future to give them enhanced productivity. And people find computers entertaining too. So it's not Endgame for technology.
Kim, though, dovetailing those two ideas, the Fed, but also China, an awful lot of what hit the semiconductor industry was geopolitics, was the tensions between China and the US, the fact that, an awful lot of business can't be done between the two now. How are you looking towards that for 2023 as well?
Well, I think it was the natural outcome, not necessarily the disagreement between China and the US, but I think a lot of companies are rethinking their supply chain. And I don't know that everything's going to end up in the US. I think it's really smart to make a more distributed supply chain, because what happens if a continent does get shut down for whatever reason, geopolitical disagreement, I don't know, a large earthquake. I mean, it just seems crazy to have a whole lot of manufacturing in one and only one spot in the world.
Hey, Kim, really since the great financial crisis, technology has really led the market. FANG stocks, for example, but just big tech in general has led the market, both up and down since 2008, 2009. There's a concern here that as maybe this market begins to take off, maybe in the back half of 2023, that might not be the case. How do you think about big tech and its leadership role?
Sure. Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, the low interest rate environment that we find ourselves in the world, not just in the US, but in the world, really has driven growth companies. And by that, I mean companies that traditionally didn't have to have a super strong balance sheet, were newer in the marketplace, and people were buying them on the prospect that they would one day grow into their valuation, right? That the cash flow would catch up. But a lot of these companies now are big enough to actually have profitable cash flow. And I think some of them will come back because they've done great at convincing customers to use them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, Amazon. But others will probably never reach that peak because people have moved on. Technology is best looked at, in my opinion, as a productive item, right, that increases productivity. It's hard to understand what will catch anybody's imagination online. It just is. The metaverse, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, we could go down the metaverse discussion for a long time. I quickly want to, really on the news has been, the pressure that's been felt by another key Silicon Valley leader, and indeed one who moved to Austin and who's perhaps been more distracted by social media than perhaps his car company. Talk to us about Tesla and about whether you've been keeping an eye on that stock at all. We've actually finally get a reprieve after 7 days of selling, which was the longest losing streak since 2018.
Sure. I mean, Elon Musk is one of the most fascinating people on earth, right? Like, let's just not shortcut that. He's in space, he's in the next wave of cars, and now he is turning his attention towards Twitter. And I don't think we're going to be able to escape that, but it is a concern for Tesla. Are they a car company or are they a technology company? And I would say the valuation has to reflect whatever it is that you believe. I personally think that it will come back, that whatever he's doing politically through Twitter is tarnishing his image and causing a lot of people not to want to buy his cars. But also the U.S., as you mentioned, is kind of in a contentious space with China, and a lot of his revenue has come from that. And it looks like that tiff between the U.S. is affecting Tesla as well. Yeah. I wouldn't look for a quick rebound, but I wouldn't count him out either.